Hi class, today we are on Saxon Book 3, Lesson 58, and we're going to talk about something called perimeter. So the perimeter is the distance around an object. Usually when we're talking about perimeter, we're talking about a yard, the perimeter, distance around a yard, maybe the perimeter of the playground at school, or the perimeter of the fence that you have in your dog run. Perimeter is the distance around something. Today, we're just going to look at the perimeter around rectangular objects or rectangular spaces. If you were with me in my classroom today, we would go outside and we would be walking the perimeter of our school. So, since you can't do that with me at school right now, I would like for you to do that on your own. After this lesson, your lesson practice today is to ask your parent and then go outside and walk the perimeter of your yard, or maybe if you live in an apartment complex, you walk the perimeter of the apartment with a grown-up, okay? But the perimeter is the distance around. If we're looking at a yard, we're talking about where is the fence. Your fence usually goes the perimeter of your yard, okay? We're not talking about the space that you run around in and play in. That's got a different name, and we're going to talk about that in a different lesson. Today, we're only talking about where does the fence go in a space or in your yard, okay? So, with talking about rectangles, I want to look at a couple of rectangles I have up here. Do you notice that not all of the sides are labeled? Here I have 80 yards and 150 yards, but I didn't label these two sides. But there's some things that we know about a rectangle that can help me figure it out. I know that the opposite sides of a rectangle are congruent, which means they have the same measure. So if this is 80 yards, I know that this is also 80 yards. If this is 150 yards, I know that this is also 150 yards. So to find the perimeter of a rectangle, actually to find the perimeter of any shape, you have to take all the sides and add them together. So first I have to say, okay, I have 4 sides, which means I'm going to be adding 4 numbers. So I'm going to add 150 plus 150. I like to put the same sides together. It's just how my brain works. You can do it in any order that you want. And then I'm also going to add 80 plus 80. And I'm going to move this shape out of the way for a second. Okay, so we have to add all 4 of these sides together. Let me show you the biggest mistake that my students make with this type of problem. They do this. They look at the 2 sides that were labeled for them, they add those together, and they say, done. But that's not what we're doing. If you only add 2 sides, then you've only figured out half of the perimeter. You've only figured out these 2 sides or these 2 sides. So you have to make sure that you're adding all 4 sides. So let's solve this. 0, a lot of zeros, that gives me nothing. 5 plus 5 is 10. 10 plus 8 is 18. And 18 plus 8, that would be 26. And then 2, 3, 4. So I have 460. Am I done? Not with this type of problem. 460 what? 460 bananas? No. 460 yards. In this case, we go with whatever measurement the problem gives us. So here we have yards. Okay? Let's look at the next one over here. I'm going to get rid of that wrong problem, and we'll leave the correct one up as our example. So here, another rectangle. I know this is 3 inches and I know this is 12 inches. So how am I going to figure out the perimeter? Oh, I have to add the sides. So, I can do that in my head. 3 plus 12, that's 15 inches. Am I done? Why are you saying no? I added the sides. They just labeled these two for me. I'm done, right? No, I've only figured out half the perimeter because I did not add these sides. So it might be a good idea for the first thing that you do is you go in and write down the measurements to all 4 sides, because that can help you not forget to add them. So I know 12 and 3 is 15, so I know this and this is 15, and then I can add 12 and 3 again over here, 15, and 15 plus 15 gives me 30. So I was still able to do this problem in my head. You just have to make sure that you're adding all 4 sides. So I've got 30 inches, and I didn't forget my label, as the perimeter for this problem. All right, we'll do this one, then we'll go back to the one I erased. So here I have 2 feet and 5 feet. It's a good idea to label all the sides. So it's a rectangle. If this is 2 feet, I know this is also 2 feet. If this is 5 feet, I know this is also 5 feet. And these are pretty easy numbers. I can do these in my head too. 5, 10, plus 2 is 12, plus 2 is 14. 14 feet would be my answer here. Okay, the last example that I had was a square. So it looked like this, and it only had one side. I don't remember if it was inches or yards. We'll go with inches. But it only had one side labeled. What am I supposed to do with that? I know this is 5 inches. What about the rest of it? Well, I can see that it's a square. So let me go ahead and label this one as 5 inches. 5 and 5. But what about these two? If it's a square, they're all going to be 5 inches because a square has 4 congruent sides. So a little trick, if it looks like a square and only one side is labeled, then you can assume that it is a square. If your textbook ever only labels one side of a shape that looks like a square, that's because they want you to figure out that all 3 of the other sides are the same length as that first side. So in this case, the perimeter, I can just count by 5s. 5, 10, 15, 20, and I've got a perimeter of 20 inches for my answer. Okay, so boys and girls, we have done the lesson practice. This was a super short lesson, and so I actually already took the problems that were in your lesson practice and we've done them together. What I want you to do right now is ask your parent for permission and then go outside and walk the perimeter. See how big your perimeter is. You can count steps if you want. You can take a yardstick out and actually measure it if you want. But I want you to really get it in your head that the perimeter is the fence around a property or the fencing around a shape, okay? Once you finish that, you can start your written practice, which begins on page 313 of your textbook. Hope you have a great day, and I'll see you soon.